Here we are. Jintan, go for it. Take it away.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the arena. As you can see here, Literally Triggered have bought something we haven't seen before, which is two Stabber Fleet issues, not just one. They have doubled down here, and they're pairing that with two Tempest Fleet issues, a Guardian, a Sacrilege, Pontifex, Confessor, Vengeance, and Skybreaker. And meanwhile, what have Sound Mind brought?
So Offsound Mind have brought the same thing they brought earlier, this Amar Brick roleplay comp, 3 Damnations, 2 Sacrileges, 2 Deacons, 3 Heretics. None of it looks like you really want to shoot it. It's all going to tank for absolutely ages. So the only real option here, I would assume, is to kill the Deacons, because with Deacons alive, you're not going to kill pretty much anything else. So it somewhat makes it perhaps a little bit easier for Literally Triggered in terms of they can't. It's difficult to make a mistake when you know what you got to shoot, and you know you don't want to shoot the Sacrileges, and you know you definitely don't want to shoot the Damnations. So the Deacons are probably the easy choice, and you've got those 2 Stabber Fleet issues and the Confessor and Vengeance to try and get on top of them as well.
Yeah, BBP has just informed me that they have actually brought this comp before. This was the comp that they won the feeders with, so their second victory and the one that put them in the actual Alliance tournament. So let's see how this goes up against something that's a little more meta here. This is similar to the composition that we saw. Gosh, I can't remember what team they beat, but it was quite the upset against the Nighthawk Shield Rush.
Yeah, one thing's for sure, Literally Triggered have a veritable smorgasbord of variations of this Fleet Tempest, Stabber Fleet, Guardian, Sacrilege kind of comp. So, I mean, you can try and ban it, but it's clear that they're going to bring whatever else makes it work. And so many options that they seem able to mix and match as they please. This Heretic, both these Heretics are taking aggro now. Stabber Fleet issue of Ragnos, and they want to take that down. Those ships are obviously clearly superior in every way to everything else. So if you kill those, there's no way they can possibly win.
Yeah, you can see that
fast, tanking so far.
Ragnar isn't even really hard tackled. He's just getting pushed off by basically DPS and a single web there. No scram on him. The Skybreaker is also taking DPS. Just everything being spread around here. Quite an interesting strategy from Offsound Mind, but it looks like it's working out here as Sai Kakashi goes into low armor, whilst the Guardian of Parkbank is also taking a bit of DPS.
Guardian's holding the Skybreaker, though. He seems okay for the time being. Tackle is thoroughly spread across those 3 Damnations and 2 Sacrileges, so if they are, again, hand-fit, they're going to have difficulty applying to anything far out, and that Stabber Fleet issue is quite far out. The entire support wing, actually, the Skybreaker, the Confessor, the Guardian, of course, it all seems quite far out, so it's mostly going to be concentrated on those Fleet Tempests and the Sacrilege, but, I mean, they're pretty tanky as well. They won't really care too much.
Yeah, the interesting thing about using all your tackle wing to just screen off your enemy DPS, even though Felix is dipping into half armor here, that having so much effect, is that it leaves the rest of their tackle to move around free. Kamilizi and Frosty are now completely free, although Dark Hadron, you can see they're going into low armor. He's been caught and is taking a hell of a lot of damage here.
Yeah, completely contrary to my call. I thought they were going to focus on the Deacons, but perhaps they weren't able to get on the Deacons, and the Damnations and Sacrileges are presenting themselves. So this Sacrilege now of Felix is just getting absolutely chunked. These 2 Fleet Tempests are parked up on top of him. J.A. Aloysius, who corrects me on the pronunciation of his name a couple of weeks ago, and Ray Payson just parked up, absolutely blasting him. Once they finish with him, they'll see who's next on the chopping board.
Yeah, it looks like Dark Hadron was shot there because he was about 50 kilometers away from the Deacon, so almost completely out of rep range, and why he died so quickly. You can see here, though, Felix going into structure. This is a lot of DPS going off the field here for Offsound Mind, and they're already struggling to break this tank. They need to be able to get on top of that Guardian somehow, and as their tackle gets whittled down here, it's going to be very difficult to do that. They've now got one less ship to screen off.
Yeah, I mean, Parkbank still just absolutely comfortably, repping whatever's needed. He's got nothing remotely close to him, to be honest. This Heretic of Kamiza, he's also sort of in the middle of nowhere. He should probably be on top of this Guardian and allowing his team to, try and break through this Guardian, because obviously without killing the Guardian, it's going to be a lot harder to kill the Fleet Tempest, the Sacrilege. I mean, anything really. I mean, they've got those 3 Heretics. They had those 3 Heretics, now just 1. And they would have been able to potentially get on top of this Guardian. And, I mean, Camis is going for him now, but it may just be too late already. I mean, Parkbank, there's nothing. Everything else is already tackled down. The Damnations and the Sacrileges would love to get on top of the Guardian, but they're already tackled as well. They're sort of counter-tackling each other with these Tempests and Sacrilege.
Yeah, and these ham sacrileges and ham damnations, they just don't apply enough to these frigates, skybreakers, confessors. They just can't break through them with the amount of DPS that they have on the field, and it's leaving them in practically such a vulnerable position here. The Fleet Tempest are sitting just outside of their tackle range, applying max DPS, and the Hams just aren't even tickling them. You can see their JA taking a little bit of damage, but the Guardian isn't even bothering to rep him as another sacrilege goes down.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing with this sort of damnation sacrilege comp. They've got a lot of the HP and they've got a reasonable amount of damage, but once you park up on top of something, you need to be able to kill it. If you can't kill it, you're kind of screwed because you can't get away from it again and focus on something else. You can't really change your target call. There's no way to say, okay, guys, we made a mistake. We need to kill something else because you're stuck in place. You've made that call. You've committed to it, and the enemy team have said, well, okay, cool, we'll take that.
Yeah, we did just see a
prevent
last
you from doing
final
anything else.
gasp there from the Of Sound Mind team. Kamazi and followed behind him by Aneurysm made a play onto Parkbank in the Guardian, but they just weren't able to get there in time. The two Stabber Fleet issues of Ragnar and the CEO's CEO were able to screen them off and just close that fight out pretty much. It's all over from here. It's now just a question of if they can kill those damnations before time runs out. And with 5 minutes left on the clock, it seems rather likely.
Yeah, I had a little chat with JO about the Stabber Fleet issues, and I generally think Navy cruisers. I think they've got a 1 point reduction compared to previous years. I think there's a handful of Navy cruisers that could actually be pretty good. I think the Osprey Navy could be fairly good. I think the Augural Navy, obviously with its insane HP bonus, could be fairly good. But I think the Stabber Fleet issue, apart from literally triggered using it, has somewhat flown under the radar a little bit because it's fast. It gets, I believe, 6 low slots, so it can get fairly tanky. It's got a couple of newts. It's got 4 mids, I think, for tackle. It's sort of, it kind of fills the role that the Vedmak does. I remember last AT Vedmak was 4 points. I think I've talked about it a little bit before. It was insanely overpowered for the point cost. Stabber Fleet issue kind of does the same thing. It does reasonable DPS. It's got newts. It's got tackle. It's kind of tanky. And yeah, it's probably a pretty fun ship to fly as well. These guys just flying around, getting on top of whatever they need to. Yeah, we're seeing the Stabber Fleet issue used to great success by this team here.
Yeah, it's obviously the Vedmak got bumped up to 10 points this year, nearly a 150% increase from the last Alliance tournament. Where do you think that the points kind of should be on that ship to make it to allow it to see use over something like the Stabber Fleet issue?
Um, I'm not sure. I think 10 is too expensive, and I think 4 is obviously too cheap because 4 is on par with other Tech 1 cruisers like the Vexor. 10, it's not going to get used because for some of these ships, cruiser hulls, you can get a hack for 12 points, right? So, if it's Tech 1 resists, sure, it can do a lot of damage, but if the opponent chooses to kill it and it hasn't got the resist to survive, then it's not going to get to apply that damage. Like a sacrilege, we saw them get melted in this match, but in general, a sacrilege will pump out 400 DPS, let's say, for a much longer period than a Vedmak is going to do 600, because the Vedmak's just going to die and the sacrilege is going to live. So to answer your question, I think try it in the middle. Maybe 7 points for a Vedmak as well would be okay.
Fair enough. Well, that's the match over. It looks like with 3 minutes left on the clock, Of Sound Mind have finally passed away, literally triggered, taking this very cleanly with 100-1. So let's head back to the studio and get prepared for the next match.
Very well played.